When it comes to college football, most people pay attention to one team, a particular conference, or most likely the Power Four. There are a select few Group of 5 games which people pay attention to, but I think one of the best kept secrets in college sports is the FCS. Each and every year, it is super exciting. It is some of the purest football in the sport, and their playoff is absolutely crazy each and every year as well. In today's video, now that we're halfway through the 2025 college football season, I wanted to spotlight who the top teams in the FCS are so far. We're to go through where they rank, what they have done so far in 2025, and also just what I think about it all. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's go ahead and get started and talk about the top FCS teams for 2025 so far. Okay, so when I took a look at the rankings, there are a decent amount of teams that are ranked in the FCS that already have 3 losses. I'm going to focus on the teams that have 1 loss, 2 losses, or are still undefeated. We're to go through all those schools, and the first one that comes on the list is Harvard. They currently rank number 17 in this year's FCS poll, and Harvard has a good chance at being one of the top teams in the Ivy League. The Crimson have ended up beating Stetson, Brown, Holy Cross, Cornell, and Merrimack, and while none of those teams really pop off the page, it's still impressive for them. They're led by star quarterback Jaden Craig, who has 1,300 yards and 11 touchdowns, a plethora of big-time running backs, and then Brady Blackburn at wide receiver, who already has 17 catches for nearly 400 yards. Harvard only has 5 games left on the schedule, and besides games against Princeton and Yale, they have a chance at going undefeated. Currently ranked at number 16 in the FCS poll is the undefeated Presbyterian College Blue Hose. I'll be honest when I say I don't know much about Presbyterian, but they've had a really good season so far as they're first in the Pioneer League and have wins over Mercer, Furman, Erskine, Bluefield University, Morehead State, Butler, and most recently Stetson. They have 5 games left on their schedule, and they're led by Colin Hurst at quarterback, Justin Montgomery at running back, and Sincere Gill at receiver. It's definitely been a successful year for Presbyterian, and this is one of their best seasons ever. Coming in right ahead of them is the Lamar Cardinals. They're one of the better programs year in and year out in the Southland, and Lamar is currently 6-1, with their one loss being to North Texas, who's a college football playoff contender in the FBS. They beat South Dakota, Texas Southern, Central Arkansas, Nichols, East Texas A&M, and most recently UT Rio Grande Valley, who's in their first year. Lamar is led by Aiden McCown at quarterback, Xavier Coleman at running back, and Blake Thomas at receiver. Lamar still has games against Northwestern State, Incarnate Word, Southeastern Louisiana, Stephen F. Austin, and McNeese, and honestly the Incarnate Word game is going to be huge, but Lamar could be in for a deep run in this year's playoff. Ranked right in front of Lamar, we have the Mercer Bears. They are currently 5-1 and first in the Southern Conference. After their game against UC Davis was canceled, which would have been huge in retrospect, their only loss on the schedule has been against Presbyterian, who's currently undefeated, and they have wins over Wofford, Citadel, East Tennessee State, Samford, and most recently Princeton. They've been pretty consistent and really good this season, and they're led by Braden Atkinson at quarterback. They also have CJ Miller at running back, and Adadijay Dabbs at wide receiver. Mercer's remaining schedule comes against VMI, Furman, Western Carolina, Chattanooga, and Auburn, and I'm definitely anxious to watch that Auburn game. I know the Tigers will probably blow them out, but Mercer is having a really good season, and maybe they can put up a fight against them. The Rhode Island Rams have been seeing a lot of success recently in college football, as they are currently 6-2 and are first in the Coastal Athletic Association. The Rams have wins against Campbell, Stony Brook, Holy Cross, Long Island, and most recently New Hampshire and the University of Albany. Their 2 losses come against Western Michigan and Brown, and while the loss to Western Michigan is definitely more forgivable, they should have beaten Brown. Rhode Island is still ranked number 13 in the country though, and they're led by Devin Farrell at quarterback, Antoine Littleton Jr. at running back, and Marquise Buchanan at wide receiver. The remaining schedule for the Rams includes games against Bryant, Elon, Maine, and Hampton, and they should go 4-0. Similar to the sport of basketball, Villanova has been successful at the FCS at the football level. Villanova is currently 5-2, and they are second in the Coastal Conference. They ended up beating Colgate in Week 1 and have rallied off 4 straight wins against William & Mary, New Hampshire, Elon, and Hampton. Their 2 losses have been against Penn State and Monmouth. Obviously, losing on the road to Penn State was pretty much expected, but their other loss comes against Monmouth, who's ranked inside the top 10 right now. Villanova is led by Pat McQuaid at quarterback, David Abbott at running back, and Luke Colella at wide receiver. For the remainder of the season, they'll face off against Albany, Towson, Stony Brook, and Sacred Heart. Currently, none of those teams are ranked, so Villanova should escape the season undefeated at this point. Coming in at number 11, we have the Jackson State Tigers. It looks like they haven't missed a beat since Coach Prime left, as currently they are 5-1 and are first place in the SWAC. They're led by Jacobian Morgan at quarterback, who's been really good this season, as he already has 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns. Ahmad Miller has been terrific at the running back spot, and Janaelon Dupree and Jameel Gardner Jr. have led the team in terms of the wide receiver spot. They beat Hampton in Week 1, and then have won 4 straight games against Tuskegee, Southern, Alabama A&M, and Alabama State. Their only loss came to Southern Miss in the FBS, and to finish out the season, they have Grambling, Florida A&M, Mississippi Valley, Bethune, and Alcorn State. I'm not going to pretend to know much about the SWAC, but hopefully Jackson State can escape that and end up with 1 regular season loss. Coming in at number 10, we have the North Dakota Fighting Hawks. North Dakota is consistently one of the top teams in the FCS each and every season, and this year has been no different. They ended up starting out their 2025 schedule with a road game against Kansas State. At the time, the Wildcats were ranked, and North Dakota actually took the lead late in the game, but ultimately blew it and lost by 3. This would have been one of the biggest wins in school history, but unfortunately they had to fall short. Since then, they have won 5 of their last 6 games as they beat Portland State, Valparaiso, Northern Iowa, Youngstown State, and Southern Illinois. Their only loss came by 1 point against Montana, who's obviously ranked number 4 in the country, so North Dakota has a really good team this season. They are led by Jerry Kaminsky at quarterback, who has 1,300 yards with 18 touchdowns and just 1 pick. You have Sawyer Seidel at running back, and then BJ Fleming has become the go-to receiver. North Dakota's remaining schedule is against Indiana State, South Dakota, North Dakota State, Murray State, and South Dakota State, so they still have to play 1 and 2, but I bet North Dakota will still get a chance to make this year's playoff. One of the best stories in the FCS this season has been the rise of the Monmouth Hawks. They've had their fair share of success in basketball, but so far Monmouth is 6-1. They ended up beating both Colgate and Fordham in weeks 1 and week 2, before almost going on the road and beating Charlotte, losing by only 7 points. They then beat Villanova, who's currently ranked, and have rallied off 3 more wins against Delaware State, Towson, and Stony Brook. Their 5 remaining games are against Hampton, Bryant, New Hampshire, NC A&T, and UAlbany, so Monmouth is looking like they're going to have a good finish. Derek Robertson has become their go-to quarterback as he has 2,500 yards and 27 touchdowns, and Rodney Nelson already has over 1,000 yards rushing. Those two have been incredible, and Josh Derry has 50 catches for 752 yards and 9 touchdowns. The Monmouth offense is extremely fun to watch, and they should honestly be a threat to make a deep run in this year's FCS playoffs. Ranked at number 8, we have the Tennessee Tech Golden Eagles. They are currently 7-0 and are first in the OVC. Obviously, they've won 7 straight games, as it first started out against Cumberland, and then they beat Chattanooga, Davidson, Tennessee State, Western Illinois, Charleston Southern, and Lindenwood. They have not played a Big Sky or Missouri Valley level of competition, but being undefeated for them is quite impressive. They still have games against SEMO, Gardner-Webb, Eastern Illinois, UT Martin, and then a date with Kentucky. Honestly, I think there's a non-zero chance that Tennessee Tech could end up competing with Kentucky, as the Wildcats' offense has been horrible this year, and they'll be dead last in the SEC and may have a fired coach by then. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I wouldn't exactly be shocked. Currently ranked at number 7 in the country, we have the Lehigh Mountain Hawks. I can't remember the last time Lehigh was this good at football, but I do remember their upset against Duke way back in the day in college basketball. Lehigh's had an incredible season as they ended up beating Richmond, Sacred Heart, Duquesne, Bucknell, Penn, Yale, and most recently Columbia. Lehigh's been playing really good football, and to finish out the year they'll have Fordham, Georgetown, Holy Cross, Colgate, and Lafayette. None of those teams are really all that impressive, so they should have a good chance at finishing the season undefeated. Hayden Johnson leads the way for them at quarterback, and Luke Yoder has become their go-to running back. Lehigh is slowly but surely having an incredible season, and I hope they finish out the season undefeated. And right before we get into the top 5, we need to talk about the number 6 UC Davis Aggies. There is a lot of talk about them moving up to the FBS, but I'm not sure when it's going to happen. After their big-time game against Mercer was canceled in Week 1, they've won 5 of their last 6 games, including wins against Utah Tech, Southern Utah, Weber State, Cal Poly, and Northern Arizona. Their only loss this season was on the road against Washington, who's probably a second-tier Big Ten team, so there's no shame in losing that one. The Aggies are led by true freshman quarterback Caden Pinnock, who has 1,500 yards and 16 touchdowns. Jordan Fisher and Carter Vargas lead the way at the running back spot, and they have 3 receivers who have over 200 yards this season so far. It's been a very successful season for UC Davis, and to finish out, they'll play against Northern Colorado, Idaho State, Idaho, Montana State, and Sacramento State. Those last 3 games should all be pretty intriguing, and we'll see how things play out for them. At number 5, we have one of the perennial contenders in the FCS in the Montana State Bobcats. While they are currently 5-2, they are still currently considered a top 5 team. Their first 2 weeks featured games against number 7 Oregon and South Dakota State, and after getting killed by the Ducks, they lost a close one to the Jackrabbits. Since then, they've rallied off 5 straight wins against San Diego, Mercyhurst, Eastern Washington, Northern Arizona, and Idaho State. Their remaining schedule will include Cal Poly, Northern Colorado, Weber State, UC Davis, and then their huge rivalry matchup with Montana. That's always one of the best games in the FCS each and every season, and Montana State still has a chance at a special season. Justin Lamson is the starting quarterback, Adam Jones is their starting running back, and Taco Dowler is their big-time wide receiver. Montana State is good like they usually are, and I'm curious to see how things play out, especially in that Montana matchup. Speaking of the Grizzlies, Montana comes in at number 4, 1 spot ahead of them. After beating Central Washington in Week 1, they then defeated North Dakota, who is currently ranked, Indiana State, Idaho, Idaho State, Cal Poly, and Sacred Heart. They are 7-0 and first in the Big Sky, and their remaining schedule will come against Sacramento State, Weber State, Eastern Washington, Portland State, and then obviously Montana State, who we just talked about. Kialiyaya is their star quarterback, as he has over 2,000 yards and 14 touchdowns. Eli Gilman has nearly 800 yards and 11 touchdowns on the ground, and Michael Wortham leads the way at receiver with 42 catches for over 600 yards. Montana is always in the top 5, and it seems like they have a good team again this season. At number 3, we have my favorite story in the FCS this season, and that is the Tarleton State Texans. They are currently first in their conference and are 8-0. They are the only team on this list who has a victory over an FBS opponent, as after beating Portland State in Week 1, they would beat Army in overtime in a 30-27 defeat. I personally watched that game, and it was super thrilling, and that was awesome. Since then, they beat Mississippi Valley State, Central Arkansas, Chattanooga, Southern Utah, Utah Tech, and West Georgia. Obviously, Army was the only decent team on the schedule, but Tarleton State has beaten every team they've played, and most of them have been blowouts. To finish the year, they play EKU, Abilene, North Alabama, and Austin Peay, and there's a really good chance that Tarleton State ends up 12-0 in the regular season. At quarterback, they are led by Victor Gabalis, who has 1,200 yards and 15 touchdowns. Trey Page III and Caleb Lewis are their dynamic duo at running back, and then Peyton Kramer, Trayvon West, and Cody Jackson, who at one point was at Oklahoma, lead the way at the receiver spot for them. Tarleton has had a special season, and I hope it continues with a deep run into the playoffs. Now we get to number 2, which, surprise, surprise, has the South Dakota State Jackrabbits. I feel like this team is always at number 2 or number 1, and despite losing their head coach, they have continued to be super solid this season. They beat Sacramento State in Week 1, got their biggest win of the year on the road against Montana State in Week 2, and then beat Drake, Mercyhurst, Youngstown, Northern Iowa, and Murray State. They play the biggest game of the FCS season on October 25th against North Dakota State, and this one is going to be incredible. I kind of wish game day was going there instead, but if they can pull that off, they'll obviously be the number 1 team. And to finish it out, they have games against Indiana State, South Dakota, Illinois State, and North Dakota. Obviously, North Dakota is also another top 10 team, so their end of the season could be quite challenging. At quarterback, taking over from Mark Gronowski, you have Chase Mason, who has 1,500 yards and 11 touchdowns, and then Julius Loffridge leads the way at running back with over 700 yards. And finally, at number 1, we have North Dakota State, who's the premier program in the FCS. They are off to another incredible start as they beat the Citadel, Tennessee State, SEMO, South Dakota, Illinois State, Southern Illinois, and Indiana State to start the season. Taking over for Cam Miller, who was drafted into the NFL, you have Cole Payton, as he's slowly but surely getting a hang of the quarterback spot, and then Bryce Lance is arguably their top receiver, the younger brother of Trey Lance. As I said, they'll play against South Dakota State at 8 o'clock this upcoming Saturday, and that's the biggest game in the FCS. They also have a game against North Dakota, which will also be challenging on the road, but I would put my money on North Dakota State going undefeated and winning it all, because why wouldn't you? But yeah, in today's video, we talked about the top FCS schools in 2025 so far, went through who they've beat, who they still have to play, some of their players, and overall where they rank. But what do you guys think? If you're an FCS football fan, who's the best team that's not undefeated or has less than 2 losses? Who is your favorite FCS program? And how do you think these teams will do the remainder of the season? Let me know down below what you think. Leave a like if you didn't support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out one of the videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.